Let me say this plainly. The person who learns how to access flow at will becomes unstoppable, not because they're smarter, not because they're more disciplined, but because they've figured out what everyone else misses. That flow is not a rare occurrence. It's not lightning in a bottle. It's a system, a sequence, a pattern your mind already knows how to follow, if you stop interrupting it every 5 seconds. Here's the truth. If you've ever been deeply immersed in something, so focused that the hours disappeared, so locked in that you forgot to eat, you've tasted flow. But you probably wrote it off as a lucky streak, a productive day, a burst of inspiration. You didn't know that it was something you could learn to trigger, that it was mechanical, predictable, trainable. So instead of studying the conditions, you waited for it to happen again. And it didn't. Or it did. But at the worst time, like 3 in the morning or halfway through a meeting. And every time you'd think, why can't I do this when it matters? That question has a real answer. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. You can. You just never created a life that makes it possible. Most people don't know how to get into flow because they've trained their brain to fear silence, to fear stillness, to fear the moment right before the work begins. The moment when it's just you, your thoughts, and a blank page, a blank canvas, a blank screen. That moment, that friction, is where the flow process begins. And 99% of people abort right there. They feel the discomfort, and instead of going deeper, they run, they scroll, they snack, they open a new tab, they escape. But you can't reach flow while running. You have to stay long enough for the noise to die. You have to sit in that tension, the fidgeting, the boredom, the pull to quit, until something opens, until the shallow thoughts burn off and the real ones come forward. The ideas that weren't visible when your mind was still bouncing from dopamine hit to dopamine hit. Flow lives behind that wall, not in front of it. And make no mistake, there is a wall. Every single time you sit down to create, to focus, to build something real, you will feel it. The resistance, the urge to do anything but start. This is not a sign that something is wrong. It's not a lack of motivation. It's not even fear. It's your brain doing what it was designed to do: avoid discomfort. But here's the catch. The most powerful version of you lives on the other side of that discomfort. And the only way to meet them is to keep going. Flow doesn't ask you to fight the wall. It asks you to move through it. And to do that, you need 2 things: intention and structure. Not willpower, not vibes, not inspiration. Intention is what tells your mind, we're doing this. Structure is what gives your mind the container to do it inside. No structure, no depth, no intention, no direction. And without both, you stay stuck in surface mode, forever. Let's break it down. Flow isn't one big moment, it's a chain reaction. A buildup of small triggers that eventually lock you in. Your focus narrows, your sense of self fades, time distorts. And then, it's just you and the task. No second guessing, no internal monologue, no checking the clock. Just doing, just being, just execution in its purest form. The mistake most people make is trying to get to that state instantly. They want to skip the climb and start at the peak. But that's not how this works. You don't enter flow through force. You enter it through alignment. Your energy, your environment, your mind. They all have to point in the same direction. You don't wrestle flow into happening. You invite it. But an invitation only works if the door is open. And most of you slam that door shut before you even realize it. You open 10 tabs, answer a text, check a notification, take a call, get a snack, and then wonder why your mind feels foggy. You've diluted your attention so much that flow can't survive in the space you've created. You've turned your focus into Swiss cheese. And flow doesn't live in holes, it lives in presence. You want flow. You need to make presence feel safe again. That means removing the things that steal it. The alarms, the buzzes, the compulsions. You don't need to quit the internet or move to the mountains. You just need to protect your headspace like it's sacred. Because it is. Your attention is your most valuable currency. And if you spend it cheap, you'll never buy back your depth. But protection isn't enough. You also have to build. You need systems, rituals, anchors. You need to teach your brain, this is where we go deep. This is when we do the thing. This is the space where nothing else matters. Repetition becomes ritual. Ritual becomes a trigger, and that trigger leads to immersion. Think of it like lighting a fire. The spark is your intention. The kindling is your structure. The flame is your focus. And the heat that builds, that slow, all-consuming heat, that's flow. But most people never light the match. Or they do, and then dump cold water on it with distractions. You have to stop doing that. You have to start treating your work like a ceremony. Show up the same way. Sit in the same spot. Use the same pen. Light the same candle. Put on the same song. Not because you're being superstitious, but because repetition lowers friction. It tells your brain, we've been here before. We know what to do. And slowly that entrance into flow stops being random. It becomes second nature. That's what mastery is. Not inspiration, not talent. Just doing the thing until your nervous system says, oh, it's this time again. But here's the part nobody tells you. The better you get at accessing flow, the harder it becomes to lie to yourself. Because once you've seen what you can do, truly do, when you're locked in, the excuses stop working. You can't pretend you're not capable. You can't play the victim of procrastination. You can't say you're stuck. You know better now. You know what's possible. And anything less feels like betrayal. That's the real power of flow. Not just what it lets you make, but what it reveals. It shows you the real you, the focused you, the limitless you. And after that, you can't go back. Not really. Not without pain, because you've tasted your own potential. And now every shallow, distracted version of you feels hollow. So if you're serious about leveling up, not pretending, not talking about it, not watching videos on how to do it, but really stepping into the next tier of your ability, you need to learn how to enter flow on command. That's what we're doing here. No gimmicks, no fluff. Just the raw truth about how your mind works, how your focus breaks, and how to build a life, not just a moment, that allows depth. You've waited long enough. The real work begins now. Let me tell you what nobody else is telling you. The flow state is not something you wait for. It's not a mood. It's not a mystical alignment of stars and caffeine and vibes. Flow is war. Focus is warfare. And you either learn how to command your mind on demand, or you spend your life watching flashes of your potential fade before you can grab them. You think you're lazy? You're not. You think you're distracted? You are. But not by accident. You're living in an environment engineered to keep you fragmented, surface level, dopamine drunk. You open your phone to check one thing, and 30 minutes later you're buried in noise, scrolling through the lives of people who aren't thinking about you, buying things you don't need, and wondering why you can't get anything meaningful done. You want flow? First, you have to learn how to survive clarity. That feeling, when the noise dies and something inside you locks in, that's not a luxury. That's your birthright. It's what you were built for. It's the opposite of anxiety, the opposite of burnout, the opposite of whatever shell version of yourself you've been dragging through the week. Flow is where the real you lives. And the brutal truth, most people never meet that version of themselves. They feel glimpses. They taste it when they're forced into it. Deadlines, emergencies, last-minute sprints. But they never master it. They never learn to summon it. Because they're waiting to feel like it. And that's the lie. Flow is not something you feel before you begin. It's what you earn by beginning before you feel like it. You don't need another productivity hack. You don't need to rearrange your desk or buy a third planner. You need to change your relationship with discomfort, because discomfort is the door. You will never reach flow if you keep backing down at the first sign of resistance. The mind does not slip into flow by accident. It drops into it through pressure, direction, and attention. Here's how it starts. You sit down. You open the document. You press play on the beat. You start moving your fingers. Your brain says, "This isn't right. I don't feel ready." And for most people, that's the end. They get up. They scroll. They say, "Maybe later." But if you sit there, and I mean sit there through the fog, through the doubt, through the shallow static that tells you to quit, something shifts. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. It's subtle. It's a soft crack in the wall of resistance, a spark, a word that lands, a thread that catches. And if you pull on that thread, the wall starts to break. That's flow. It doesn't come because you're comfortable. It comes because you stayed. Because you trained your nervous system to stop fleeing the moment things get real. You want to change your life? You start there. You build the muscle of staying, not grinding, not forcing. Just staying, long enough for the shallow thoughts to run out of steam, long enough for the truth to catch up to you. You know when people say zone out? They're talking about the exact opposite of this. Flow is not zoning out. Flow is zoning in so deeply that everything else fades. It's not absence, it's presence at a level most people never reach. It's what happens when you're no longer watching yourself, no longer narrating, no longer editing as you create. Your inner critic shuts up. Your ego goes offline. You become the work. You don't think. You know. You don't hesitate. You respond. And when you finally look up, an hour is gone, and you've made something that feels like it came from somewhere beyond you. But it didn't. It came from the part of you that only speaks when you get quiet enough to hear it. And here's the key most people miss. Flow is mechanical. That's the good news. That means it can be triggered. It can be trained. It's not a mystical spark. It's a sequence. Input, immersion, ignition. But if you don't show up for the input, you'll never reach ignition. That's why most people never get there. They quit too early. They think their resistance is a stop sign. It's not. It's the toll gate. You want access? You pay with discipline. Now, I'm not saying flow makes the work easy. I'm saying it makes it inevitable. When you're in flow, you stop arguing with the task. You stop negotiating with time. You stop fighting the clock and start bending it. Things that felt heavy become fluid. You don't skip the hard parts. You become equal to them. Flow doesn't make the mountain smaller. It makes your steps relentless. But here's the hard part. The modern world is designed to kill flow. Every app, every ping, every dopamine slot machine in your pocket is built to make sure you never get deep. You think it's just you, your brain, your habits, your willpower. But it's not. You're in a constant tug-of-war with billion-dollar machines engineered to make you crave novelty every 3 seconds. And that's why you feel like your attention span is broken. It's not. It's been stolen. The good news? You can take it back. But you have to get violent about your focus. You want to drop into flow on demand? You need frictionless entry. That means no decision fatigue. That means you don't try to write. You write. You don't decide if today is a good day. You sit down. Same time, same place, same setup. Flow loves repetition. Flow loves ritual. It needs a runway, so give it one. And once you're in, stay. Not forever, but long enough for depth to show up, because the first 20 minutes will suck. They always do. That's the price of entry. But the next 20, that's where the gold is. That's where the ideas come that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. That's where you become smarter than you are. That's where you look at what you just made and say, wait, I did that? And the more you train that access point, the faster you find it. You go from needing 30 minutes of warm-up to 15, then 10, then 5. Because your brain recognizes the space. It knows what's coming. You've trained it like a muscle, like a trigger. And eventually, flow isn't rare anymore. It's normal. It's not a miracle. It's Monday. And now here's the part they really don't tell you. Once you've accessed that version of yourself, you can't lie to yourself anymore. You've seen what you're capable of. You've tasted the depth. And every time you settle for surface after that, it burns. It hurts. Because you know you're betraying something sacred. You know the real you is buried under noise and comfort and habit. And that's why flow doesn't just make you better at your craft. It forces you to raise your standard for your life. So stop waiting to feel like it. Stop chasing motivation. Stop asking the world to give you the right mood. You already have everything you need. It's not out there. It's in you, buried beneath comfort, waiting beneath doubt, past the friction, past the scroll, past the hesitation. Start, stay, go deep, and when you come back up, don't just call it progress. Call it home. When you're in flow, you're not chasing time, you're bending it. There's a version of you that no one's met yet. Not your friends, not your audience, not even you. Not fully. And you won't meet them in a casual moment. You meet them in the trenches, in the silence, in the hours where there's no one to impress and nowhere to hide. That version, they live in flow. They wake up when the rest of you gets out of the way. And if you've made it this far, if you've trained yourself to sit past the friction, to stay when your mind screams for an escape, to keep your hands moving when your brain says there's nothing left, then you've felt that version starting to breathe. You've seen flashes of them. And you know, this isn't just about being productive. It's about being whole. The more time you spend in flow, the less tolerance you have for anything that isn't it. Surface-level conversations bore you. Half-effort days irritate you. Shallow scrolling starts to feel like self-harm. You can't unsee what real focus gives you, and that creates a split, a crack between the person you were and the one you're becoming. That's not a mindset shift, that's a full nervous system rewrite. Because flow doesn't just change how you work, it changes what you accept. You start cleaning up your life without even meaning to. You stop saying yes to things that cost you too much mental bandwidth. You stop being around people who treat your attention like it's unlimited. You stop chasing quick dopamine because you've tasted something deeper. It's not that you become some monk who never gets distracted. It's that distractions feel like betrayal now. That's the secret nobody wants to admit. The more you step into flow, the more you realize how much of your life has been built on delay, on noise, on avoidance, and you have to burn all that down. Not with some big dramatic quit-your-job moment, but day by day, choice by choice, saying no where you used to fold, saying now where you used to stall, saying done to the things that drain you for nothing. It's not just about flow in work, it's about flow in life. The way you move, the way you speak, the way you show up, the way you keep promises, not just to others, but to yourself. That's how you build the structure that lets flow find you again and again and again. Because here's the hard truth. Flow won't chase you. It doesn't follow you into chaos. It doesn't break through distraction to save you. It waits. It waits for you to clear the space. It waits for you to come back to center. And if you keep feeding it a broken schedule, an overfilled mind, a body running on fumes, you'll lose access. You won't lose the ability, but you'll lose the trust. You train flow like you train a wild animal. You don't dominate it, you respect it. You build a place where it wants to show up, where it knows you're ready. And if you break that trust over and over, if you disrespect the process, you become one of those people who used to be sharp, who used to be dangerous, who had potential but never built the discipline to hold it. That's what flow asks for. Discipline. The kind no one sees. The the kind where no one claps, the kind where you're showing up with no audience, no likes, no credit, just you and the work, every day, like it matters, because it does. And when it clicks, when you feel yourself drop back in, you remember why you started this. You remember what it's like to move without second guessing, to create without judgment, to execute without hesitation. You remember that all the noise, all the overthinking and self-doubt and procrastination was never truth. It was static. And when the static clears, what's left is something clean, something real, something that's always been inside you, waiting to be heard. That's flow. It's not something you find, it's something you return to. So now the question isn't, how do I get there? The question is, what are you still holding on to that keeps you out of it? Are you still performing for people who stopped watching? Are you still trying to prove something instead of making something? Are you still asking for permission to go deep when no one's stopping you but you? Because if you are, you're building walls where you should be building entry points. You're building distractions when you should be building momentum. And flow doesn't live in someday, it lives in right now. So you sit, you stay, you breathe, you drop in. Not once, but over and over, until that rhythm becomes who you are, until focus stops being rare, until greatness stops being random, until flow stops feeling like a miracle and starts feeling like home. Because it is. If you want to go deeper, there are member-only benefits on the channel, exclusive videos, early drops, behind-the-scenes breakdowns, all the stuff I can't post publicly. Tap in if you're serious.